Hello, and welcome to the 2021 IEEE Rising Stars Global Conference. My name is Phil Batista, and my guest today is Mr. Ron Snyder with Cisco. He is one of the featured speakers at the conference today. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. We're delighted to have you here. Your session today is entitled Stepping Up to the Plate, Helping Communities During a Crisis. It covers several aspects of crisis management and response. Can you tell us what it's like to be involved in responding to a crisis, what functions you perform, and what aspects of technology you implement in your responses?
It's pretty intense when you are involved in a crisis or disaster response. I've been on several big incidents over the past few years, and you want to bring your A game. You want to make sure that when you're going out there, you're providing a service, for the good of the whole disaster response. You don't want to be part of the problem. Everybody is well intentioned, but you still want to have a good support structure to allow you to do your job while you're out in the field. So, and you get that feeling of accomplishments where you're serving a higher purpose. You're serving the community that is in need, and for me, it's very personally fulfilling. To be able to do this as a job, within Cisco. I consider myself, very fortunate to be part of the team that goes out and does disaster deployments. What we do, what type of services we provide. What I do on the team is I'm a solutions architect. So what I do is influence, the technical strategy and direction of our solutions, our technology, our portable kits, make sure that that is still addressing the needs of emergency responders and affected communities. When we
Ron,
go
so
out there,
let me ask you a question here. You made a great point, and so I'm an amateur radio operator as well, and we are prepared to respond in terms of disaster as well. But as an amateur radio emergency services officer, one of our mantras is just what you've mentioned. You want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And you mentioned technology, and for those that don't really understand what the nerve vehicle is or what you do, you mentioned preparing technology and kits. Talk a little bit about what that means from a visual perspective so we can understand what you're doing when you're preparing these kits for your crisis response.
Sure. And, really just a little bit of background, for, majority of people, when they think about disasters, they think about, food, water, transportation, really basic necessities for the affected communities. But what enables a lot of these coordination of efforts to get all of the supplies in is communications. That is, the kind of a lifeline to make sure that all of these supplies are getting in. Now, to the point of, our kits and our solutions, some of the bigger incidents that we've had were all of your service infrastructure, whether that's telephones, broadband, there's a total wipeout. There's nothing left. And what we do is we come in there, whether that's the NERV, like you mentioned, the Network Emergency Response Vehicle, or our kits, is we have our satellite-based backhaul that provides wired or wireless connectivity, telephony, voice over IP. Those are some of the more critical services that is frequently requested from us for emergency responders, because they need those tools so they can call back, to the Emergency Operations Center, tell them this is the situation, this is how you get food and supplies in, and this is how you coordinate other response groups that are, fanned out and providing that help. So that's what we in particular at Cisco Tactical Operations, we're a tool in the emergency responders kit of different tool sets that enables them to do their job more effectively, more efficiently, because time is really of the essence.
Absolutely. So when you say backhaul and voice over IP, are these primarily for only the first responders, or also for residents in the communities where you serve to provide infrastructure and access to the internet and that type of a thing?
It really depends, but it's for both. So most of the time we get our requests from emergency response agencies and groups, and sometimes they request those services for the affected population that might be in a staging area. They might be relocated into like a converted gym. They want to be able to provide them with connectivity. So those affected people are able to send messages out, because a lot of their loved ones may not have heard from them because the infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed. And this is one way that we're able to connect loved ones, so they can let them know, their families know that, they're that at least they're alive and they're well and they're onto a recovery path, especially if the community is destroyed.
Well, it's got to be a big relief. I mean, not everybody's used to the ICS forms and all that, protocol that emergency responders use and first responders use. So tell me what part corporate social responsibility plays in responding to a crisis.
Corporations have the opportunity to contribute really in a massive scale, and in tech in particular, it's really critical. Where you can provide either communications, software solutions, data analytics. These are all being used by incident commanders to evaluate real time what's going on in the field. So there is a big opportunity, for people with this specific background in technology to help enable, these emergency response efforts, and really contribute, because CSR, corporate social responsibility, a lot of that is in the form of monetary donations, which is good, but lending those expertise, to the public sector, to emergency response agencies, will really, help catapult this whole effort, so we can better serve the community, especially in the dire times when something bad happens.
So this is particular with respect to disaster response. Are there other types of responses that you respond to a crisis where it's not a disaster, or a disaster inherent in the response that you provide?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there are other crises, such as refugee situations. We've helped out during the Syrian refugee crisis over in Europe. I've been on one of those deployments. So yeah, I mean, a disaster doesn't have to take a form of earthquakes or tornadoes or hurricanes. It also can be due to conflict and some other form.
So do you have these nerve vehicles deployed across the globe, or are they mobile to where you can load them up into a military aircraft and have the aircraft deliver the vehicle on scene?
The nerve usually stays here in the continental United States. It can drive over to Canada and Mexico as well. We have gotten requests to transport the nerve vehicle across the Pacific, but the costs associated with getting that type of transportation is just too prohibitive. So we have other solutions that's available: kitified, portable, airline checkable solutions that can provide your basic internet's Wi-Fi and telephony capabilities, for areas that are not covered with communications.
Sounds like those are much easier to deploy. Absolutely. So in your experience with this, what lessons can you bring to the table that we can learn that you have in responding to a crisis?
Some of our really big incidents that we responded to, for me personally, with Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, really saw the value of partnerships with the different groups on the ground, because that enables you to have a bigger scale of operations. That partnership allows you to, eliminate some of the redundant work that goes into setting up the different sites, making sure that you have a big impact in your area of operation. So partnership, was a really eye-opening for me, especially with the most recent disaster, because it just made our job so much easier, coordinating with different groups on the ground.
So when you say partnerships, are you talking about governmental partnerships or NGO, non-governmental organization partnerships or corporate partnerships, or is that an all-encompassing when you say partnerships?
It's all-encompassing, because usually the government, they're the lead in public sector responses. They're managing, the incidents. You need to be in the loop. You need to be providing some real-time information so they can make better information. They can make better decisions based on the information you're providing. With the nonprofits, there's so many different nonprofits on the ground that come to provide some service to help people. It's good to be plugged in with them as well. Even though I'm responding to communication and there's a nonprofit responding to supplies, that doesn't mean that there couldn't be any type of sharing of information. There's always something valuable that can be shared between groups that have the common purpose of serving the affected community.
Absolutely. We've got a couple minutes here. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. The next to the last question here is going to be, how can people volunteer to help the community in preparing and responding to crises, both globally and locally?
If for those young professionals that are out there, the companies that they're working for, they might have their own corporate social responsibility programs where you're donating your time to certain initiatives. That's definitely one way. Either volunteering your time or donating money. There's like a matching that happens with the corporations there. So that's one way. You can you volunteer your time for nonprofits. Some examples out there are Red Cross, ITDRC, Team Rubicon. There's so many out there that takes volunteers and enables you to either donate your expertise or donate your time. You can actually go into an incident area and provide the service. And there's different needs in different specialty areas. So it's not just, I know we're talking about communications, but there's so many other areas that need help too, logistics wise, program management, just being boots on the ground, that is a big help. So this is not confined to just technology. It is a broad set of skill sets that are needed in disaster response.
Absolutely. I mean, people say, gee, all you want me to do is get coffee and water, but those can be critical elements in responding. So the last question I have here, we've got about a minute and a half. Ron, what do you personally get out of your activities in responding to crises here and abroad?
One of them that we already covered, is partnerships. Those are not something that only exists in a professional sense. Those are some things that you carry on, personally. You get to know people, you become friends with them, you share, because you share the same passion of going out there to the field. So having a strengthened partnership, definitely is something, is a good takeaway. And then just seeing that you have an impact in the community, whether it's just that phone call from a mom that's calling out to, a relative saying that, hey, we're alive, we're here, can you pick us up? That's, you can't, there's really no comparison to that, for me, where you go out there, you endure some of the hardships, not anything like what they've been experiencing, but those are just providing that connectivity from a disconnected community, to the rest of the world is so fulfilling. It's a feeling like no other.
Absolutely. Well, and I've been a part of some efforts, not as much as you have, and mine is all done on my own time as a volunteer with radio stuff. But, to be able to relay a piece of information, whether it's over wired or wireless, to a loved one that their family's okay, is something that you can't purchase that type of a feeling. I mean, giving back is such an incredible opportunity. You're so blessed. Ron, thank you for your time. Thank you for presenting at the conference today, and we look forward to your session.
Thank you so much, Phil.
Have a great day.
You too.